Hey Pokemon Masters, my name is MegaPinkyena and welcome back to my channel where we like to explore all things Pokemon theory, speculation, top 10s, Easter eggs, trivia, things that you might not have noticed, things that you have that I think are particularly cool. And look, we have visited the Kanto region so many times now. Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Green, Gold, Silver, Crystal, Hard Gold, Soul, Silver, Leaf, Green, Fire, Red, Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee! Yeah, we've visited the region a lot, so naturally there are a lot of references and Easter eggs and a bit of trivia. So, if 15 in this video isn't enough for you for some reason, don't worry, I've done another 50-something from Let's Go alone back when Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came out, and I'm obviously going to try to not cover any of those in this video. So if this video isn't enough for you, go check out that one, see what I was like 2 years ago. I was just as annoying then. Thank you for putting up with me. I don't know why I do these things, like that weird little rhyme thing. I just like it. Thank you. And as usual, I'm going to try and tell you some things speculative, something's theory, most things Easter eggs or references, and just try and tell you something that maybe you haven't heard before. And the goal of this video is just to tell you at least one thing you've not thought about before. So yeah, thank you for that. Also, I just want to put this out there, absolute full disclosure, I recently have been working on a sponsored video with the company Original Stitch, who sent me out a number of these shirts that I'm wearing in a lot of my upcoming videos. I wear them because I like them. I've been looking at these shirts for ages. This video is not part of that sponsorship. It's not sponsored. I've posted on Twitter, I've posted in the community post. I just want to make sure that with full disclosure, you know that why I'm wearing these shirts in this video. I've not been paid to wear them in this video or anything like that. And the actual official sponsored videos, as you've already seen, there have been some sponsored posts. I will always declare them with, you know, hashtag sponsor, hashtag ad, that kind of thing. Anyway, with that little bit of housekeeping out of the way, let me jump into it with 15 Easter eggs, bit of trivia, cool things about the Kanto region, starting with number 1, Espeon and Umbreon. Pokemon that are obviously not from the Kanto region, famously. They came out in Johto. Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, and they weren't really featured too heavily in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. I don't think Eevee was even part of the Pokedex in those games. But Eevee was part of the Pokedex in Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, and in those games, you cannot evolve your Eevee into Espeon and Umbreon. And you might be thinking, well, duh. But you can evolve, say, your Onix into a Steelix or Scyther into a Sizzle, but that's only with the Metal Coat, which you don't get until the post-game of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, or possibly not all in those games. It might just be in Ruby and Sapphire. So you have to do some trading, you have to do some shenanigans to evolve those Pokemon. But because the method of evolving Eevee into Espeon and Umbreon is high friendship, they just make it so you can't obtain those Pokemon whatsoever. That said, this might be a key factor as to why Espeon and Umbreon became the starting Pokemon in Pokemon Colosseum, but we'll never truly know. Number 2, you've probably heard this one before, but I think it's really cool. In Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, there is a person on the SSN who tells you they're part of the global police force, which sounds very similar to a character we know called Looker, who's part of the international police force. Our suspicions being that this person on the ship in Generation 1 was in fact Looker. In fact, in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Looker is washed up on a beach, and the SSN, certainly in the Pokemon animated series, sank. So maybe that could have been the case, or so that was the theory until Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came out, confirming that this person was not Lieutenant Surge and was just another member of the global police force. Unless Looker regenerates like the Doctor. Because there's also a little girl who says that she's undercover in Pokemon Sword and Shield. No, we're not getting into that Pokemon theory here. Number 3, it's always been a common theory that Cubone is a baby Kangaskhan that lost its mother. That's been a pretty frequent one. And in fact, that evidence was supported and added into when in Pokemon Sun and Moon, they added SOS chaining. And when you were chaining for a Pokemon, it could call a Pokemon of another possibly related species. And Cubone could call a Kangaskhan. However, just a few years ago, the group called Helix Chamber found old files of Pokemon Red and Green, like the beta files, and they found this sprite of Marowak. And look, it has a pouch with a Cubone. That's pretty wild, and I think pretty much confirms the theory. Number 4, I've done a whole Pokemon theory video about this in general, but in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and this is something I didn't cover in my Easter eggs video, there is a golden special Melmetal that you can find, and I'm not talking about the shiny form. I'm talking about in Cerulean Cave, and this happens only with Meltan and Melmetal. It doesn't happen with other steel types like Magnemite and Magneton. It doesn't happen with any other Pokemon. And it's not even a lighting issue, like, it only happens when you interact specifically. When you go into Cerulean Cave with Meltan or Melmetal following you, and you touch one of the green stones, or rather have Meltan or Melmetal touch one of the green stones, it turns golden. It's just really weird, and I actually suspect that this was possibly intentional, because like I say, it's not a lighting issue. It's got nothing to do with the lighting in the room. It's to do with when Meltan or Melmetal interacts with that green stone. And the idea of metal being purified into gold is a big part of alchemy, which in general has been a big part of kind of Pokemon's history over recent years, as we've seen on Loxodon's channel. So I don't know, I think that was possibly intentional. Certainly, if nothing else, a weird bit of trivia that you can try for yourself. Number 5, of course, in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, there's the Pokemon Game Corner that became the Pokemon Arcade. And that's not totally weird in itself. Gambling laws have changed in relation to video games and what these video games can and can't have in them. What's weird is that in this arcade, while there are references to tons of Pokemon spin-off titles, there is also a poster on it that has all of the different kinds of Pokeballs, including Master Balls, which is really weird, because in Generation 1, the Master Balls are the things in development by Silphco. They're like a top secret new project. So why are they on posters? I don't know. What does that tell us about the Kanto story? Yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about that one. Whatever you make of that. I don't know, were they planning on releasing and selling these things? Who knows? Number 6, in Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, Team Rocket has an additional story after the main game. You may have heard this one, I think it's really, really cool. They have this whole additional story where they're taking over the Sevi Islands and they vow Team Rocket's returns. And one of the admins has a very interesting team, because it looks a lot like the team of Archer. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, where Team Rocket has returned in Johto and Archer is one of the admins. They have very similar teams. They're obviously in Heart Gold and Soul Silver vowing for Team Rocket's return, and Archer is even added into Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So ideally this kind of represents the idea that yeah, Archer was there for the main story of Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow. We just didn't know which Rocket Grunt they were. Number 7, of course, back in the days of no internet, we had to find our Pokemon rumors on the playground. Kids would just tell you stuff and you go home and look it up in the games. I remember spending so many hours trying to unlock Team Metal Sonic and Sonic Heroes. It was this team with Metal Sonic and Eggman and Chaos, and it didn't exist. But the rumor mill went round and I thought I had to get an A ranking on every single mission and then play multiplayer 50 times. Clearly that wasn't the case. Rumors happened and people would go back to their video games and check it out. And of course there was the ever so famous rumor of Mew being under the truck in the Vermilion City docks. For some reason, in Vermilion City, just outside of the SS Anne to the right hand side, there is a dock and there is a truck. And if you manage to trade a Pokemon with Cut to your team from another game, you can get Cut, move on with the game, not set the SS Anne off, and come back to it later once you've got Surf. You can surf out there, and a lot of people would suggested that if you use Strength on the truck, Mew would be hiding underneath there. This wasn't the case, but in Fire Red and Leaf Green, they added a lava cookie to the dock area. Which, you know, the only reason to put that there is, of course, as a nod, as a reference to all of the fans who thought that Mew was out there. Number 8, there is a forest on the Sevi Islands that has this weird, funky, like, design. It's a forest filled with bug Pokemon, and the design is said to look like a circuit board. This is honestly the most common Easter egg to do with pretty much any Pokemon game. When you look up Kanto Easter eggs, this is the main one that always comes up. And, you know, obviously I look up to see what are the more obscure ones. This one you've probably already heard of unless you haven't played Fire Red and Leaf Green. But yeah, there's this forest and it looks like a circuit board, and the reason it's a forest filled with bug Pokemon is because it's a buggy circuit. That's the idea anyway, that's the reference. Number 9, jumping forward a little bit to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, in the post-game, the Delta episode, you finally get to battle Deoxys. And it appears to you behind what looks like a giant triangle, which for a meteorite is very alien looking and very peculiar, and the triangle sort of dances around the screen. And this is a reference to a Kanto game, to Fire Red and Leaf Green, where through special events you could get a ticket to go to Birth Island, and you would find an island with a triangle on it. And you'd have to interact with this triangle and chase it around the screen. Ultimately, it would reveal itself to be Deoxys, hiding within its own meteorite, I guess. So it's a nice little reference to that, and they reused that for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Number 10, in the beginning of pretty much every Pokemon game, if you interact with the TV or the console, it's a reference or Easter egg to something. And in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, there is this kind of, you interact with the TV, and it tells you about this movie that's on with 4 kids walking down a train track. And they're talking about the film Stand By Me, which is a really good film if you haven't seen it. But when they brought out Fire Red and Leaf Green, there was obviously 2-player characters now. You could choose to play as a male or a female protagonist. And with that, Leaf or Green or whatever you want to call her, when she interacts with the TV, she gets a story about a yellow brick road, which is obviously a reference to a different really good film, The Wizard of Oz. Classic movie, and as Kack would say...
I understood that reference.
Speaking of Leaf or Green or whatever you want to call her, let's talk about number 11, which is kind of like why those naming conventions are weird. In Japan, the first games were Pokemon Red and Green version. Blue was like a special update to Pokemon Red and Green. And so the main character and his rival were called Red and Green. Of course, the first games that we got here in the West were Red and that special Blue version, so they were called Red and Blue. However, in the Pokemon Adventures manga in Japan, Blue was already a character name that was assigned to a female character who had come from the Kanto from Pallet Town. And so when it got translated in the West, those things got swapped over. So we had Red and Blue as the kind of main character and the rival, and the female character was called Green. Then, when Leaf Green and Fire Red came out, we got this character with this design, and she didn't look like the character from the manga, so we just called her Leaf. However, then in the Pokemon Adventures mangas, they consolidated these 2 characters into one. So now she's Green Leaf in the West, and in Japan, she's Blue Leaf. Or just Blue and Green, and that's why there's these kind of like confusions around the name and what's going on. In the West, if you live anywhere other than Japan, this character is called Green. You'll see her referred to on all modern Pokemon card art and in games and in Let's Go as Green. It is the same character as the female playable character from Pokemon Leaf Green and Fire Red, and yeah, that's just that. However, if you're in Japan or if you're like a purist, then I guess it's Blue. Number 12, Lieutenant Surge in Pokemon Yellow has a Raichu, and of course this is to mimic the use of Raichu in the Pokemon TV show, which Pokemon Yellow is kind of inspired by. But this makes Lieutenant Surge the only gym leader to only ever use one Pokemon, ever, which is really, really cool. Number 13, kind of a weird one in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. When you rematch Sabrina, she talks about how a trainer like you will only come along again in like 2 years. A trainer as powerful as you. Which is an awesome psychic prediction of Pokemon Gold and Silver, except wait, Pokemon Gold and Silver don't really follow these games. Because in Pokemon Gold and Silver, I'm pretty sure it was still Red that took down Team Rocket, and he's the champion who awaits on Mount Silver, not the 2 from Let's Go. Also, Chase beat Sabrina, and I don't know if Chase beat Sabrina before or after you. I don't know, just given that Chase is kind of a little bit rubbish, it must mean that there's not a lot of good trainers over the next 2 years. Either that or Sabrina's psychic gift is a little bit off. Or maybe we're just not supposed to think about it and it really is just a reference, just an Easter egg referring to the Generation 2 games. Number 14, I absolutely love this one. I don't know why it wasn't adapted on in Let's Go, but in the Sinnoh games, there is a special event using the item Oak's Letter. Professor Oak invites you to a special route to the side of Victory Road, where there is this big smooth rock that they found, and he talks about how there's a similar rock has been found in Kanto, and if you engrave what you're grateful for, it will open up a path to Shaymin, the gratitude Pokemon. And what was really interesting to me is when we eventually revisited the Kanto region, both in Heart Gold and Soul Silver in the post-game and in Let's Go, we never got this. But what we did get, which is really weird, is in Let's Go, your partner Pokemon can pick up a pretty flower that is the Grasadia flower. It's Shaymin's flower. So maybe this is a reference to that, or maybe it's just a reference to Shaymin. Either way, it's pretty cool, and I would love to see this idea of Shaymin in Kanto be developed even more. And number 15, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire have a special television program that talks about how Brawly moved from the Kanto region to the Hoenn region to live year-round. Brawly is originally from Kanto, but moved to Hoenn to surf. But this was actually referenced all the way back in, I think, Fire Red and Leaf Green, when a character in the Sevi Island talks about it. And this idea of a surfer dude hanging out in the Kanto region has actually been the basis for my theory on who Hao's dad is. Because we know who Hao's grandfather is, and you could see Brawly being in that family. I totally see it, it makes sense to me. Hao's got this thing for surfing because he's got his surfing Raichu. They're all very joyous and upbeat, and Hao even mentions at the end of Sun and Moon, when you talk about how you came from the Kanto region, you mention that and he's like, Kanto, huh? Yeah, that's really cool. You know, my dad went traveling the world. which again, Braylon is from Kanto. So kind of a little bit of a Pokemon theory there, an old one from me, not been any new evidence to prove or disprove that, but also just a nice Easter egg to the fact that, or reference to the fact that Braylon used to live in Kanto. And there you have it, 15 Easter eggs, bits of trivia, references about the Kanto region, but if you're hungry for more, I got 50 more on Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and if I did accidentally repeat one, I am very, very apologetic. Check it out. Thank you for watching my videos. You are awesome. I cannot wait to show you what I'm working on towards the end of this month, next month. Thank you all for watching. And of course, soar high, Pokemon Masters.
This is Ashs Ketchum. You just watched a video by Birdkeeper Toby. That makes you a Pokemon Master.
Thank you so much to those of you supporting the channel using Patreon, including the big patron of this month, Gunnar Clovis. Thank you.